waiting for that next purchase, that next thing. And I look at the margin like, this is terrible.
My name's Sasha Karabut, and for almost a decade now, I've been helping new brand founders launch and scale e-commerce businesses. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Hamen Bamba, who spent over $30 million on advertising and generated over $120 million for his clients. Today, we're going to be jumping into why you should not jump into and start a subscription-based model to sell your product.
Absolutely. So first thing, I do believe fully that when you're starting out, you need cash flow. So you need to be profitable, you need to be making money. And if you wait for the next purchase, you probably will not make it to that next level.
If you're a first-time founder, I think the idea of it, okay, this should be really easy. I'm going to give them a 10% discount for them to subscribe. They're going to pay me every month. When you look at them side by side, it's the offer's not that strong, and then they get no subscriptions.
We have a client in eCom Capital, and his brand is doing right now 50% profit with 50-60K a month. And this is without the subscription.
Hamen and I both discussed this in the pre-show discussion, where we've seen so many founders and so many people fall flat on their face while trying to get acquisition for subscription-based models. Hamen, give me your thoughts on this topic. Why do you think people should stay away from subscriptions when they're first launching their brand?
Absolutely. So first thing, I do believe fully that when you're starting out, you need cash flow. So that's the first thing. And I've seen this many times, by the way. I come to the call, we're looking at the numbers, and the person is like, I'm waiting for that next purchase, that next thing. And I look at the margin like, this is terrible. And if you look at supplement, they're kind of into that by default because they think about that next purchase. But the problem is e-commerce is already pretty much uncertain. On top of this, you're not securing your margin. So very much, I remember again vividly coming into validation, look at the numbers, like minus negative margins. I'm like, what's happened? He's like, it's a supplement. I'll wait for the next purchase. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense. We're starting a business. We want to make money. And then we know by default, we're going to be losing and waiting for that next purchase that might never materialize. So that's something that really kind of got me right away when I, thought about let's say supplements, because they use this a lot versus other, let's say, categories. But I see most of the time, if you're starting out your business, you need cash flow. You need to be profitable. You need to be making money. And if you wait for the next purchase, you probably will not make it to that next level. In fact, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but some of the brands that I've seen in the past, they were like one of the best, I would say, e-commerce, stores that I've seen launch and scale fast. They were a consumable and they actually didn't offer that. And they were like, we're not going to do it because we want to be profitable right away. So that's my view. I'm curious about your view.
Yeah, I just think it's people think that when they are launching something, especially, and this is different. So it's like if you are an experienced, weathered, a veteran, you know what I mean? You've launched multiple e-commerce businesses. You've seen the kind of highs and lows of single touch or single purchase products. And you're like, okay, I'm going to take all that experience. I'm going to launch another product. I know the type of product. I know the buying cycle. I know the margins that I need to have. And you kind of do the modeling out based on that. Then this is probably a different story for you. And you probably can go on to have a lot more success. But say, for example, if you're a first-time founder, I think the idea of it in the mind of that kind of first-time founder is like, okay, this should be really easy. I'm going to give them a 10% discount for them to subscribe. They're going to pay me every month, and then it's going to cost me the same to acquire that customer, and then they'll just continue paying me forever into the future. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like the thinking that I think leads people to set up these subscription kind of offers, these bundle pages, all these things that when you look at them side by side, especially compared to just the single first-time purchase product, they're not that different. The offer's not that strong. And then they get no subscriptions. So I think like the idea of it makes a lot of sense. People get excited about the idea of just getting paid every single month. But I think the things that they don't see and don't understand completely is like the true cost to acquire one customer when you've never even acquired a single customer in your company. And all of a sudden you're trying to not just get them to buy once, but you're trying to get them to subscribe every single month. It's a very different kind of like purchasing decision. And naturally with the different purchasing decision, it's going to require, similar to what you mentioned, so much more ad spend or acquisition dollars to find the person that's actually comfortable going, I'm going to commit to buying this product over and over and over again. I actually am okay with you saving my credit card information and billing me every month. It's a completely different kind of decision as far as like impulse purchase versus long-term commitment.
Yeah, I think about this. I'll actually tell you something. This is a real, like, like situation here. So I was working with one of our account managers actually launching like in the beauty space. And I remember he showed me this, period where he was like, let's do this launch where we actually don't charge anything. It's almost like a subscription. He's like, we're going to do this. We're going to 30 days wait for us to charge the customer. So essentially change the product for free. That's going to remove all the friction. So it's a very smart strategic way to launch. It's almost like we're going to trust that they're going to give us money in the future, right? They're not going to cancel or anything like that. So it's kind of ultimate subscription, but we're not even making money in the first purchase. Like we're just waiting for them to be charged after they like the product or not. And then I looked at this.
They receive the product for free and then they get billed 30 days later. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Understood.
So almost like no friction, right? Very, very good. Just like you're going to charge them later, and obviously they can cancel if they don't like the product. But the thing, when I looked at it initially, it was looking good as a strategy because we're seeing sales coming in, but obviously they're not materialized. Just sales, right? And then I looked at it 30 days later, 40 days later, and I've seen actually he's struggling with cash flow, struggling with just seeing like those kind of sales materialize. So people would cancel, things would be a little bit more messy, and he just pivoted from that. So looking at that, time, I was like, this is the same thing with subscription. They just don't see it in that time frame. So we just like purchase, wait, and that person might never purchase again. Or we're just like kind of almost like in a prison. You buy something and you're like, I'm just going to be waiting for that dream outcome that's never going to happen. I want to be in that freedom space where, people are buying from me, I have a big list and so on, but that never happens. And I see this as a very challenging for new business owners. As you mentioned, they need the cash, they need survival, they need to really monetize right away. We might have to fix a product. Think about that. They're waiting for subscriptions, but people are hating the product. They want refunds. So you end up with like a bigger risk.
And it's similar to what I just said before as well. So it's like people will so think about the things that as human beings or as consumers we subscribe to. So we subscribe to phone plans, insurance plans, internet providers. I'm not sure. Maybe some supplements. You know what I mean? Maybe some people get supplements. Maybe some groceries delivered to your house every week. There's certain subscriptions that you can get, and so most of the things that, especially in the Australian market, I think the US market is a little bit different, and they're a little bit more conditioned to subscribe to everything. I think in the Australian market, we're not quite there yet in terms of being conditioned to everything's on a subscription, right? And so with that, it's like the thing that determines the kind of comfortability for the consumer to subscribe is the trust they have in the company and the consistent predictability that they actually have with buying that product, right? Like I said, internet, phone, petrol, maybe you can get a petrol subscription, meat, there's like Butcher Box and companies like that do so well with those subscriptions because people buy it every week. However, if you're a brand new company, right, you have zero trust. No one's ever seen your product. No one's ever seen your brand. No one even knows who the hell you are, right? You have no kind of like repeat customer rate. You have no data to suggest that people even like my product once, let alone buy it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And I think this is the second part that generally when you start as like a one-time purchase focused business, what that gives you is also good quality kind of like product validation in terms of like, is my product that good? Like, are people actually coming back and buying again? Do they say good things about it? Do they consume the product? Do they come back naturally and leave reviews? And if that's the case over a period of time, then it's like, okay, well, a subscription in this situation amplifies natural behavior rather than being like, okay, let me force people to subscribe. A perfect example of this is the guys we were mentioning a little bit earlier at the top of this call, Ben and Bianca from that Blunt company. So very interesting. Single time purchase only. They had like 0 repeat customer rate for the first 2 months, naturally. No customers rebuying. Now, 3rd month or 4th month in, and their repeat customer rate has gone from like 4% up to 10%. And it's gradually increasing because now there's the people that are coming back and purchasing over and over again, right? So it's like as that continues over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 months, they're going to see the repeat customer rate increase more and more. And then they're going to be able to map the times. Okay, 45 days, that's when people purchase. Very good. Okay, I'm going to send some emails out and nurture people back into repurchase at those times. And my view is like, if you start with that in mind and you go, let's do first time purchase first, then let's see if people repeat and come back over and over again and purchase. If they do repeat, then you probably want to kind of accelerate the repeat nature with the emails and with all the back end text messages. And then if that amplifies the repeat rate even further, then you might introduce a subscription model into something that is behavior that's already happening at a really good rate. And then we're doing it just to kind of like make more consistent cash flow on that money. That's my view of how I see this done well.
This, like if you're profitable right away with a business like that, then you're kind of, guaranteeing that you're fine. Both cases, let's say they don't buy again, you're good. They buy again. But if you do the other way, you're kind of like just challenging yourself to look at LTVs and lose money, essentially, in my opinion. And I think about it even from my own business perspective. When I started just, let's say, moving to clientele and service base, I was thinking about, well, the client would come in and they would pay me, let's say, 2,000, 3,000 a month, and I can have a retainer, right? It just comes in every single month. That's like a subscription, right? And I was thinking about it like that. But what happened is, the moment a client would pay me, I remember this was probably 2021, 22, they pay me at, like, let's say 2,000, and then they change in behaviors. They don't want to pay the next month. And I have to chase it. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of work. And I started pivoting from actually charging, let's say, a certain amount one time to a bulk payment so that I can secure a certain AOV. Because I was like, I don't want to do the invoicing kind of figuring out. And they need me. Like, I know that. And they want me to work while they're actually not paying in time. So it was almost like, I was chasing those invoices, and I was thinking subscription is like that. You can put that on a credit card, but they're going to cancel it. They're going to cancel it. They're going to have to look at that cancellation rate and kind of churn rate and so on. But what I was thinking about was, how about I just treat it as one-time purchase? They come in, they pay one time. I try to push the highest, let's say, AOV that I can, and then that's it. And it's been working like this structure. The moment I did it, it was just easier. And one of my clients actually told me, he was like, the fact that I paid 90 days, it just made it easier. I can trust you more if we have like a more time to consume your service. So same thing with your product. If you're doing a subscription, or you have a subscription, let's say, model, think about if you can push your AOV by just making them buy, let's say, 90 days or more. They're going to just test your product more. Essentially, you created the subscription because right now you're more profitable upfront, but also they're testing you more. So I would focus more, if you tell me we have a consumable, present a structure that makes sense for your audience, obviously, but make it to where you push your AOV rather than subscription, because you end up actually getting a subscription.
It's a very, very good point. And I think the reason for that is people like perfect example. So I'm subscribed to Athletic Greens, right? The kind of like the powder that they send to your house, the greens powder, right? And they bill every month, and then they send you the package every month. Okay. And so it happens consistently where I will religiously use the product over and over and over and over and over again, perfectly every single day. And then so if I'm like traveling or moving around, sometimes like I won't use it every single day. And so naturally, like some of it will accumulate in the packet. And then I'm like, I'll email them and I'll say, can you put it on hold for 6 weeks? And they'll put it on hold, right? And then after I've finished the rest of the packet, then I go, okay, can you please send me the next one? Send me the next one. Back and forth, back and forth. And so I think about it in terms of like, let's hypothetically say there's the other example that I also shared with Asmin on our podcast, the Shilajit, if you remember that little black tub, right? And so they're very good at this. And I know Athletic Greens is $1 billion company and they crush it, absolutely crush it. But what these guys did, which I think was excellent, is rather than them selling me one little tub of that Shilajit kind of supplement, they will like get 5 months worth of this supplement and pay for the price of 3. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a great deal. I paid $450 for 5 months worth. I've got 3 of those things sitting in my pantry, you know what I mean, for a long time. But from like a cash upfront maximization perspective, profit maximization percentage, such a better model, and I think additionally to that, you don't have it's exactly what you just mentioned there. It's like when someone like they see their credit card statement get billed and they get the notification on their phone or their smartwatch saying, build for X, Y, and Z e-commerce product that you've just subscribed to. And in their head, they go, geez, I haven't even used that last month. I'm going to cancel that straight away.
Yeah, the demand is much higher. They're going to be like, we're more looking at every single time, every single 30 days, what's happening rather than 90 days. So you're zooming out. And actually, just so you know, I looked at this many times. So there was a business that I went into, and it's just I was just looking to take some lessons, let's say, in terms of like musical instruments, which I know it's weird, but it's something I was looking at. But
Playing the
anyway, I went
guitar
to
or
the
the piano? Which one
yeah,
was it?
piano, piano, and I was like, I want to do
You must
piano.
play a song for me. Play a song for the audience.
Right? So go there for the school, and then they told me technically you can pay for a lesson, let's say $120, right, per lesson, individual, one, and that would be like 120. I wanted to say an hour. It was like it's going to be $200, and that's like I was doing the math. I was like, okay, so it means that I need to pay, let's say, $200 per week and $800 a month. They were like, or subscription is just $300 a month. I was like,
Mm.
like $300? Why? He was like, just you enter into the yearly plan. I thought it was membership per month, but in reality, they wanted the upfront payment for that. So the moment I came in, they were like, okay, you need to pay 1.4K for us to secure this price for you. And then that let's say that kind of subscription is paid every cycle. And the cycle is obviously 90 days. So they're actually making more money and giving me almost like a situation where I was thinking, if I pay a month, it's 800. If I pay with the subscription, it's actually 400. So I can save much more. So I was like, I can get half the price. It's stupid to not do that, but I need to commit a 90 days to 6 month period. So I was actually, paying for that. And that made my investment much bigger because I was coming in like, hey, I need to be there. What's the time? Give me the time because I'm paying like 1.4K. So I was more involved in this versus just maybe taking one lesson and just canceling. So they thought about that cancellation of people coming in with a lot of enthusiasm to take a piano lesson and then just after one or two, they just cancel. So they give you like almost like stupid decision making. And I was like, just let's do it.
And it actually, similar to what the point you just made there, is when you, rather than doing this subscription model, I'm thinking about also another client who they recently kind of bundled more of their products. David Johns, I don't know if you know David and Joanne, right? What they did is rather than them selling like single time products, what they did is they just offered 12 months supply of a product that like, you're like, why would you buy 12 months worth? You know what I mean? But it's like, what it does, I think, when you offer those like annual plans paid in full, and the monthly is much more expensive compared to the annual, you actually kind of like, by nature of that kind of filtration process, you get more of your ideal customers. You know what I mean? Because think about it, what you said with the guitar lesson example. It's like, let's say you went, piano lesson, I'm sorry. Let's say you went and committed to the piano lesson and you're like, cool, I'm going to go pay for the whole year in full. Like, there's two types of people that do that. There's the big kind of like bargain, shoppers that want the cheapest option and they'll go and pay for it. And then after 3 months, they will do nothing. They'll drop off and they'll have paid 12 months. And then the company makes a lot of extra free cash profit because they're not going to go and give refunds. Type number 2 person is the one that goes, this is a fantastic bargain. I'm going to pay for the whole year. And then they stick it through and they become an amazing kind of like customer of the company. They leave reviews, testimonials, all those good things. And it's like the company benefits. You know what I mean? So I think like from a profit perspective, it makes more sense. From a customer perspective, it makes more sense.
Also, they tell you just one position that someone can actually think about this differently. So let's say in your landing page, they tell you like in my end, they actually told me level 1, if you want to go into level 1 with the piano, it's going to be a year of like training. So they actually gave me that expectation of you're not going to do it in a month and it's going to take you time. So I was thinking these guys are strong marketers because they were telling me, well, it's a year thing to pass level 1. So if you're in your store, let's say offering people a subscription, you're not telling them necessarily how much they need the product and you're not necessarily positioning that. But if you position, you need 90 days is where you start seeing the muscles. That's going to be like an AOV that I want to get into because I'm thinking, well, I need the muscles. So if you think about an offer, I think also positioning a higher AOV with that, dream outcome and time expectation, people would actually repay more and they're going to go ahead.
I agree. I definitely agree. So I think one example that I really like to share here, which is a company that ran a subscription model. I'm not going to share the name of the company because they were under a public company's banner. And what they did was they were selling like pet consumables. Now, this was a great example of like a subscription model that was like, it was almost propped up with like external cash, and it also had almost like, it's like throw the kitchen sink at the market to get the customer to subscribe, because when they subscribe, we lock them in and we make it very difficult for them to churn. And then what happens is it's like we've got a certain period of time where they need to pay and pay and pay and pay and pay for us to break even, then make profit. So all the whole company's model was, how do we sell anything and everything, sell my freaking grandmother to get the customer for the first time. After we've got them for the first time, we essentially make customer support non-existent. You can't click and cancel. There's no phone support. There's nothing. And then after 5 months, then you let them off the hook and then let them kind of cancel. And this company, they scaled quite quickly. I think they were doing between 2 and 3.
That's like so strong. I was just hearing you saying it. It's like, that's strong.
It's wild. I was so shocked when I saw this model, and I went through the actual customer experience of doing it, and I got the products, and I was like, this is really ordinary, and I paid this much per month. And then I went in and tried to unsubscribe off of the subscription, and I was like, how do I do this? They've made it like a labyrinth maze. You know what I mean? I'm like, how am I supposed to get out? I had to just about cancel my credit card.
Subscription businesses, this thing, when you cancel, I think the canceling process, they try to, like, businesses, because they lost so much in this category, they try to make it so much painful.
Correct. Oh, it's a very strategic tactic. You know what I mean? It's like you have to print out a piece of paper, scan the piece of paper, send it via letter to a certain address, wait for them to phone you. Like, it's insane to think, like, the difficulty level.
You need to actually send something in the mail to get the cancellation.
Send a physical wax stamp. Crazy. And so what ended up happening is, with this company, because they were selling such a big, strong offer on the front end, in terms of there was all of these extra gifts and free bonuses and giveaways and time-sensitive discounts to get the customer for the first time to subscribe. What happened was their COGS on the front end was so expensive, right? And then their acquisition cost was very expensive. And so naturally, over those 5 months that they were trying to reclaim cash, they were losing money, right? And so you think about it, it's like, what that puts you in a position, and what they ultimately ended up being in a position to do, where they could not spend any more money on acquisition because they were losing so much money at such a big rate. And the moment people got to that 5-6 month mark, they were all churning. So they would lose money for 5 months. Then after 5 months, just about every single customer would come unstuck and then churn. And so they've got this like situation where they have to lose money, get to the point where they just start to break even and make back money, and it all just falls out the back of the bucket. And so they ended up going under simply because they couldn't sustain the cash flow to actually grow the business. And the front end economics of like this big offer didn't make sense to lose money for 4, 5, 6 months. And then the product quality and what was being delivered month on month on month, it just wasn't that good. You know what I mean? And so I think, like, great example of like a forced subscription, and that ends up in a very, very, very ugly kind of crash and burn cash nightmare that ends up like winding up the company. So I think a lot of lessons in that, in terms of, like, number one, like, your product has to be really good. People want to naturally come back and purchase over and over again. And I think the other thing, which it just pisses people off, because if you go to the reviews platform of that company, the reviews are ugly. You know what I mean? It's like they're horrible. You can't unsubscribe, never subscribe to this company, never purchase this product. And it makes it very difficult for new customers. And then what happens is your front end has to get even stronger to offset all the negative reviews. And it just puts yourself in this like downwards spiral. So very, very, very challenging. I much prefer for new brand founders to focus on exactly what you said. How could I get one customer? How could I potentially sell them 3 month supply, 6 month supply, versus being like, let me put them on a subscription and let me see if I can bill them monthly.
Yeah, but I think you also, like, we've seen this many times. Like, you did this with Bissou, right? So you did this, we went into, let's do this subscription, let's focus on it, and then just build this whole other, let's say, structure for the business, then to realize that you can just go with the other way, just profit from the first purchase. So I think you did this test as well, and you've seen kind of those two scenarios, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Like when I did it with Bissou, it was like, well, people naturally come back and purchase the product. They buy it over and over again. The repeat rate's amazing. People love the product. It's got great margins. All of the indicators were like, it makes sense for it to be a subscription. And so we built out landing pages, we built out email campaigns, we built out a lot of different promotional activity to be able to drive subscription-based purchases, initially just from the list, because they were already buying on a consistent basis. And then we ran it for, I would say, 4 months, and probably spent $15,000 on various different mechanisms and tactics to acquire customers. And I remember there was multiple times where I was like, okay, hang on a second. Did we set up the subscription app right? Because maybe people just can't, type in their credit card information. We haven't had a single person subscribe. And then I'd go through and test the funnel, and I was like, no, it definitely works. The people just don't want to subscribe. I'm like, this is insane, So I think it's like the difficulty level from the offer perspective, how compelling it needs to be, how like it needs to really make sense beyond shadow of a doubt for people to actually subscribe. So that first time purchase and getting that kind of like selling one product to one person on one platform with one promise and doing those 4 things first. Like, it's like if you just focus on that for a strong, maybe 12 months, 24 months, and you really start to build the buying behavior of what happens naturally for your customers, and then you want to adventure into subscription land afterwards, potentially do it after. But initially when you're starting, the difficulty levels, the cash flow kind of variance, the amount of money that you'll need to consistently fork out to get new customers, it's a very, very, very dangerous road, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And think about this. Like, I'll give you an example of this business that I actually looked at as well to say what they're doing overall. So there's software, obviously they rely on subscription. That's their main business model. And they did not focus. And actually, I mentioned them in the past because I use a tool. It's like you probably use the platform Active AI, but they have a structure where you get into, let's say, a trial, and then they charge you the yearly. And they don't necessarily disclose that. So they have a lot of customers coming in, and then when they ask about the refund, they can't refund you unless you wait 45 days or even 60 days. So seeing this, I kind of flagged right away that they have issues with cash flow, because if you can't refund the customer right away, by default, you've been receiving many claims, and you can actually check their Trustpilot. It's just filled with people. I've been charged $300. I've been charged $300 after the 7 days. And that's thing, it's kind of almost like they have a software that does create it. So people would need it normally. If it's a good one, you should really get good results and build more momentum. But the fact that people are not able to pay the $300 per year just means that potentially you have the problem in terms of what you're offering, but you're trying to just get cash out of customers as soon as possible, and you're facing those refunds because you're just charging them without them really understanding. So I think subscription, if you look at it from a perspective of your customers might even click on your subscribe in your store, not knowing that, just because it's cheaper. But then you charge them and then ask you for a refund. And then you enter this cycle of, I need to wait a little bit for the cancellation, because I have a lot of people that are not even aware of the refund policies, or not aware of the subscription that they got into. So the thing is, in my opinion, if you're launching the business that could be charging people on a monthly basis, you should be aware of there going to be surprises. They're going to come in and be like, hey, I want a refund because I was not even aware I subscribed.
It's a very good point. Even the I won't name the name of it, but even the brand that I was just showing you before, the naming conventions that they use is not like subscribe, but it's called auto ship. You know what I mean? And so I could imagine situations like that where people, the pattern interruption of just seeing the word subscribe, that's what triggers people to be like, ooh. But if it's like auto ship and then a much bigger discount, it's like, it feels easier. And then you've got this situation where people are naturally just like getting billed 30 days later and they're like, I didn't subscribe. You know what I mean? And so you've got the support tickets that go through the roof. You've got angry people that are like, because, and you know this better than anybody. It's like, you could say something in your ad, you could say auto ship. And then on your shop page, you could say auto ship. And then in your email, you could say, thanks for your confirmation of your auto ship. And then people would be like, wait, what? I only purchased one time. You know what I mean? Like, people, they need to hear it over and over again. So I feel like it's such an easy mistake for consumers to kind of like slip up on, them just seeing like a word that they don't recognize, but with a big discount. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to save the money, buy that. And then next 30 days, next 60 days, they're getting billed. And then they're getting into like angry customers, and you kind of ruin your brand a little bit.
And one of my clients, just I can go over his brands. You can check it out. It's like called groominghere.co.uk. It's in the UK. And I consulted him for a while in terms of growing his revenue. And his ROAS, very, very big store, doing millions per year. So it's really not a small store. But he created this subscription that is kind of not saying subscription. He's positioned it as the hygiene plan. So it's like a plan. But the thing is, it doesn't make sense for someone coming in if they see that they can buy the main product for 60 or this hygiene plan for like 50. And you can cancel even if you don't want let's say the blade that they keep sending you. It's a grooming tool. So they're going to send you blades every 6 weeks for 11, I think, pounds or something. But the thing is, he played on this where he was looking at, well, if I was to say subscription, they're not gonna do that. So let's mention it, make it as a plan, but they know they can cancel. And he's actually emailing them about, if you don't want it, you can cancel, you can cancel, you can cancel. And he kind of fixed that problem that you just mentioned, but he's more disclosing that it's a subscription and that they're going to get the blades and kind of going over the benefit for the blades so that they know about what they're getting. But he was able to fix this problem in terms of making sure the customers are aware. But I see that businesses, they do, let's say, ignore the subscription word, and then they don't tell the customers on the back end because they don't want them to cancel. So that's, I think, a gap that if you're launching a business and you want to do that, you can still position no subscription word. You just mention a plan. But if you mention a plan and you mention the price and the information, make sure to email them, have the flows to not have customers asking you for a refund after you ship in the product to them. That's going to be a terrible experience.
Yeah. What would you say from your view, the biggest, like, let's say, for example, what skills would you say a founder would need to have, like really, really, really strong competency in, to be able to succeed and do really well with a subscription model versus like a first time purchase from what you've seen?
All right. So I'll tell you something. It's actually a funny story. So one of my mentors, and I mentioned this to you, he's very, very good with media buying, almost like a senior in the space, popular YouTuber in the past, again, built massive businesses. He had a business that was a consumable. So for him, looking at the skills you just mentioned, he did have all the skills to do this, right? All the skills, all the resources. Yet he did not do that because he was like, I just want to focus on the first purchase. I want to be profitable right away. And I'll scale from that after that first phase. So if you tell me the equipment, I'll probably think about it. Still doesn't make sense much to just focus on subscription because you'll have to pay more, work more on things, kind of dissect more. Even for an expert, it's going to be almost like predicting AOVs, LTVs, quality of the product, a lot of guessing, a lot of media buying costs that you're not planning on. So I would probably not even recommend that for an expert, like unless you really have a big budget. So unless you have the budget and the capital, I would probably not do that, even if I have the expertise and everything to do that. But if I have the budget and I'm really looking to position this in terms of a subscription and I want this long term, I'll think about, you need media buying expertise. You need to understand your cash flow. You need to have capital. If you don't have capital, just ignore it, because how can you sustain sales that are unprofitable unless you have capital? So the condition would be not only expertise in terms of understanding the funnel, the conversions, the quality, the emails, but also having capital. That's probably one of the biggest things to look at.
I agree. I think the capital component is so easily overlooked. You know what I mean? Like if you're doing that and you're burning cash at a rate that kind of exceeds like how much cash you have available to run your business, like you're just going to run out of money straight up. Skills, I think, is you need to be masterful in like offer development, offer creation, to be able to position something so that people really want it. I think that's so key in terms of that plan, that membership, that insurance policy. That sort of, it needs to sound and auto ship, whatever it is. It needs to be so enticing that people would actually do it. I think number two is product quality, in terms of like you need to actually create wildly good products that people love and they naturally want to come back and use. And I think the third thing, which some of our clients, oh my goodness, they crush that. But it's actually that like retention play. So it's like, how do you create customer advocates? What is your loyalty program? What is your rewards program? What are you doing for the people that have already paid you to continue kind of incentivizing them to come back over and over and over again? Like, what is that community component where people are evangelists of the brand and they're not just this transactional, thanks for your purchase, all good, bye-bye now. You know, further to that, similar to what you mentioned there, I think that the key things which are so easily underestimated is like what you mentioned: budgets, projections, forecasting, CAC versus gross profit. If you're launching a new business, your gross profit lifetime value or your lifetime value in general, you have no idea about. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't know how many times people are going to buy the product. I'm not really too sure if they're going to buy it once or 6 times, because I'm launching a brand new business. And so if you're launching a subscription, your CAC is going to be 3 to 5 times more in terms of acquiring the customer, but you're relying on lifetime value, or you're trying to rely on a lifetime value that you don't even know what it is yet. So you've got a fixed cost on the front end of, say, $500, and then you're hoping that that customer is going to come back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, but you have no data on it. You know what I mean? So like the modeling kind of mind, the kind of
yes. Well, one of sorry to interrupt, but what one of the things I look at is what you mentioned right now for a person launching a business. This is like expertise level and everything. So capital, like every single touch point you're an expert on to really get that to move. So it's really not for people starting. That's my view on it.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, it's a challenging road. It's definitely possible, and I think that there's a lot of benefits to it if you can lock it in place. And then also if you look at it from the perspective of valuation, you know what I mean? Like, it does increase the valuation of your company if you do have a good quality kind of subscription monthly recurring revenue baked in there. It will always kind of improve that kind of like total val, which is helpful. But then it's like, to get to that point, I think that you need to focus on the first time customers, building good products, creating epic offers, making sure you've got strong margins and good quality like EBITDA that can sustain the company. And then from that point, maybe start looking at like subscription based models. Are there any
What
other?
should you, let's say in terms of investment, if you tell me right now what you just said, let's say it's good from a, let's say, valuation kind of perspective, but think about this. We have a client in eCom Capital, let's say Akarali, he came to the podcast with Asmin, with Tongat Ali. So his brand right now, he actually shared with me the numbers like yesterday, I think probably 2 days ago, sorry. And his brand is doing right now 50% profit with
Wow.
50-60K a month. And this is without the subscription being pushed, right? And everything he did, essentially, if you remember, we talked about this with him. We mentioned the push the AOV. He actually pushed the AOV. It's up right now. And he's like, I'm acquiring, he told me, I'm acquiring customers profitably at 50% level. So you tell me this, and then you tell me, well, it's a Tongat Ali, it's a consumable. Evaluation would be crazy. Like, hey, you can literally just offer this on the back end, and then people would just think your company is worth, they probably not think it is worth millions of dollars, because you're able to make 100 to 100K a month with 50% profit. You're very hard to compete with when you do that. So that's my view on it. It's really, the valuation is like triple if you can be profitable and create a subscription.
100% agree. But it's a very good model there. So let's just like even use that as an example. And if we were to, because I know that we did the podcast with Asman. So with his situation, that is a really good kind of example of like, okay, so what has he done? He has a consumable product that people use over and over again. They would buy every month because the product's very good. It works very well, works for a specific problem, helps men with their testosterone. He did not go and run out of the gate and build a subscription model, right? He built this one-time purchase machine that focused on average order value, increasing that up, bundling, kind of packaging up 1, 2, 3 months, 4 months supply, which has now led the business to be in a very strong cash position. And then it's like, okay, so let's just hypothetically say in this situation, he was to model out consumer behavior for the last 6 to 12 months and identify that, these types of customers tend to buy at these frequencies, and then perhaps test integrating a subscription. Maybe there's some kind of like evidence to support the idea of that. And it's like, that makes sense. But it's like, he's got resources to support that. He's got good, strong cash flow. He's got good, strong customer base that are coming back and buying. He's got like good scalability. It's not like he's reached some kind of like tipping point ceiling, like ROAS is very good. All these economics then support the idea of being like, there's good reason to suggest that if I did install this subscription thing on the back of this business that's here already, I know how often they buy. I know the margins that I could actually install the subscription on. I know the offer that I could give as a discount on the subscription versus the one-time purchase. All those things are available, but it's like he's done it in the right sequence, And then also
think about this evaluation. Would you invest in the business like this? Absolutely. It's just you're profitable right away, and you can then add the subscription. It's almost like optional for us, and we're selling a consumable. So for me, looking at his business, I'm like, that's a good business. That's probably the right sequence, and even evaluation. I'll probably, if you tell me, Hamen, would you invest? Absolutely, a business that like that, profitable right away, and then scalable, very, very big potential.
Very, very good. Strong episode here. For those that are listening, that you're entertaining the idea of this subscription kind of like promised land of money until the end of the world and unicorns and rainbows and all those good things, like it's a lot harder than you think. You know what I mean? And so I think the skill
in the dream. Hey, by the way, this doesn't work. Don't do it.
Yeah, I just think you need to have those skills set up initially before you go and chase a difficulty level that's a lot more extreme. It's very similar. Like think about SaaS companies or software companies. They essentially all build software subscription models, and they lose money for 1 to 2 years while they build a product, and then they start acquiring customers. And so many of those businesses just go bust and go bankrupt because they can't support the growth of the business, or they can't support acquiring customers, because it's like we charge $100 a month and we're $4 million in the red. What are we supposed to do here? It's insane. So I think the skill set component, you've got to get those things right before you start to entertain the idea of these things. Focus on like strong profit, similar to Asmin, strong profitable one-time purchases that can build a business at 30 to 50% margin. And then you can start to, if you feel big and brave and like you're ready to take on more problems, then you can chase the subscription level problem because it's much more difficult. Any final points from your end, Hamen, before we wrap this up today?
So just if you're, again, starting your business, focus on how can you be profitable right away. I'll keep saying this, just you need to focus on that. And you should not seek that higher LTV initially because you might not get there. So if you think about it, again, I want to do the thing that where I can kind of spend money, build a massive list, have some automation. That's possible, but you can be profitable within that process. So think about that AOV, that push, and securing that first purchase. That's going to be my main recommendation here because I've seen it many times where it doesn't work and we just end up losing money.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Very powerful. Look, I hope this is helpful for you in building your business. And I hope whether you're doing a subscription model or a first-time purchase model, some of these things can be applicable and used in your business immediately after this episode. If you have any topics, feedback, questions for us, please send us an email at support@ecomcapital.com and we can perhaps entertain the idea of going through some of your questions on the call. We've got some great guests coming up in the not too distant future, so look forward to breaking some of those down with you, Hamen, and continue driving some amazing growth for the brands into the future.